does.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel in another video. It's been a while since we've done literally anything on either car. If you follow me on Instagram, the E30 got into an accident with a deer. So we will probably be addressing that sometime later. Damage wasn't too bad, definitely repairable, but gonna have to fix that car. And then the 335 is the main subject of this video. I've owned this car for probably 5 years and never really had any major issues with it, done a lot with it in terms of upgrades. But the car is, what, 16 years old now, and it is getting a little tired. So we need to kind of revamp the whole car, do a bunch of work, do a bunch of maintenance stuff. I got a bunch of upgrades for it. Other than that, it just kind of needs a refresh overall. Now, like I said, car is about 16 years old. It's 2008. I've owned the car for 5 years. Car was dealer maintained and completely stock before I bought it and ruined it. Since then, coilovers, wheels, full bolt-on basically, downpipes, exhaust, intake, really aggressive ethanol tune. Car made about 465 horsepower on stock turbos to all four wheels. And it's just kind of taken a beating, a lot of drag strip runs, bunch on this clutch. So overall plan for these next couple videos is we're gonna pull the drivetrain assembly, so engine transmission, completely out because it needs a clutch and it needs turbos and it needs oil pan gasket. It needs quite a bit of stuff. We're gonna be doing the water pump while we're in there. Just a bunch of maintenance items basically. And then we do have upgraded turbos, which I will cover kind of when we install those. And then we're doing a DKM twin disc clutch as well. So bunch of new mods, super excited. Car should make 550, 600 horsepower now, hopefully to the tire, we'll see. But other than that, I'm gonna try and give you guys kind of a guide if you wanna do this yourself. I am doing it on the garage floor on jack stands. I don't have a lift or anything like that, which would probably make my life quite a bit easier, but we'll figure it out. Most people probably are gonna be doing this on jack stands. So other than that, we're just gonna kind of dive in because there's a lot of work to be done. I am still waiting on parts to show up, so probably just cover all the parts in the next video and we actually dive into like tearing the motor apart. Other than that, that's about it. So car's already on jack stands, as you can see. We got it in the air as much as I can comfortably with what I have, jacks and stuff. So first things first, obviously get it on the jack stands. We're gonna take the front wheels off. Rears can probably stay on because I'm not really doing anything back there. The whole plan is to basically drop the engine and transmission with the subframe through the bottom. And then pull it out the front because of limited room. So we're gonna be tearing down the entire front end, putting it in basically like service mode, removing the crash bar, radiator support, radiator, intercooler, AC condenser, all that stuff. Pulling it out the front, and then hopefully that'll work. And then doing the clutch, turbos, doing all that outside of the car because it would be a pain to do in the car. So let's just crack into it and get going. Alright, you guys, we got the back fender liner out, front fender liner out, under tray out. Pretty easy to get out. Bunch of 8mm little screws. And there's 2 or 3, depending on what side, of these little plastic 10mm nuts. And then for some reason, there is one T30 bolt. It's like a plastic bolt. So get all that out. All the fender liners come out. Front and rear, those look good. The under tray is destroyed. You can see my repair attempt there, but this thing's trash, so we'll probably have to order a new one. Next, front bumpers coming off. T30s up top. There's 4 of them. 2 Phillips heads right here. And other than that, that's about it. Front bumper come off. We'll get the headlights out, same thing, bunch of T30s, pull those out, get the front end stripped down. And then we'll move on to intercooler, stuff like that. Start taking like charge pipe out, kind of just get everything out of there, and then go from there. Okay, we got the headlights out. That was it was pretty easy actually. So T30s, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's one inside the fender right here. Get all those off. If you do have the winter package with the washers, you have to disconnect those lines. There's just 2 little plastic clips. Pop those off, separate the lines. Get all the lines out. Once you take this headlight out, you can remove the line that runs to the driver's side headlight. Got both the lights out, and then there's just one electrical connector. Big guy, be very careful. I definitely broke mine. And then there's just a wiring loom for the fog light, and I think the ambient air temp sensor, that's clipped into the bottom of the headlight. And then other than that, those come out. I do have another video planned for these, so stay tuned because we're gonna be going through and redoing them all, making them look brand new again. I got the hood latch off, 310 millimeters, super easy. Make sure you guys bag everything, or at least keep track of everything. Makes your life a lot easier. Went ahead and pulled the intercooler off because that's super easy. So next step, we're gonna drain the oil, drain the coolant, drain the radiator, and then we're gonna start to pull off kind of the accessories. We'll pull this coolant tank out. We're actually not gonna be using this one. I'm going to do an upgraded one, probably the Turner one, just because I've had a lot of issues with this thing since I relocated it, and it just doesn't fit that well with the active auto work blow off. We're gonna remove the charge pipe, we'll remove the fan, and remove the oil cooler, and then we will just kind of start working away at the front end. Try and get the front end all off, and then we'll move to the suspension. Get the suspension disconnected from the subframe, and then after that we'll move to the transmission, shifter, drive shaft, kind of stuff like that. Once you get the headlights out, it really does simplify everything. You can just see kind of how easy it is, and then we'll unbolt the crash bar, and then radiator, AC condenser, radiator support. So let's get going. Drain the oil. We do have a sample kit from Blackstone Lab, if you've ever heard of them. Basically take an oil sample and kind of see what's in it, make sure there's not a lot of metal, make sure your engine's not breaking apart inside. I just want to get it done as kind of a health check because I've never had one done before. So get a little oil sample, drain the oil, flush coolant, and then we'll get going removing everything else. All right, you guys, little progress update. So we drained the oil, we drained the coolant, got them out. There is a drain plug in the radiator. Pulled the oil cooler off. If you guys haven't checked out that video, we built a custom oil cooler. Pulled that out, drained it, because there's probably 1.5 quarts of oil in there. Now, pretty much the other thing we're gonna do, so we disconnected everything for the front end. Got all the wiring off. I'm gonna leave the horns attached to the crash bar because I don't wanna deal with those. Got them disconnected, wires there. So now we're gonna get these off. This crash bar needs to come off. So now we're gonna get the crash bar off, 4 13 millimeters, both sides. And then that should come off. And then we should be able to get that shrouding off and then work from there. Probably pull the radiator shrouding. And then we can pull the radiator, AC condenser. Make sure you get your AC condenser drained first. And then we're just gonna keep taking stuff off. So let's get the crash bar off and we'll go from there. All right, here's the progress. We got the charge pipe out. Pretty much everything's cleared off the front end. Removed kind of the charge piping on that side to the outlet. And then everything's kind of out of the way. AC lines are next. And then basically we can drop the radiator assembly. It's pretty much an assembly with the AC condenser and the radiator. It's basically screws up top. There's 2 of them to hold the radiator steady, and then they sit on these clips down here, so we can just drop the whole thing as an assembly. And then other than that, we're good to go. We got parts gained in here. We got the fan shroud out as well. I forgot to show this. This was from our Colorado road trip. Wound up ripping the transmission under tray in half. So that's cool. We're gonna have to order a new one of those as well. So that's kind of the update right now. It's pretty straightforward so far. But then other than that, we just gotta crank away and get the radiator out. And then as soon as the radiator is out, we can get the radiator support off. And then kind of take a few more little things off the engine. And then we'll move to getting the transmission ready to pull out. I'll be curious to do that. Drive shaft, obviously. I think we can leave the transfer case attached to everything, and then we'll just go from there. So let me dig into the radiator and we'll go from there. Okay, we got a bunch done right there. So let's go back and I will actually show you guys what we had to do. So, whole front end's off, as you can see. Got the radiator. This comes out as a nice little package. Radiator, AC condenser, and then there's actually a factory power steering cooler that I did not know that it had. So we disconnected all that. I finally got the lower radiator hose off. And then once you do that, these are the power steering cooler lines. I guess it depends if your car comes with it. I didn't even know this car had it. So these are super easy to get off. Make sure you clean them first. And then basically you just push the line forward into the cooler and then push this little plastic clip right there back into the line. And then it's like a quick disconnect and they pop off, both of them. You will have to bleed your power steering after this, but that's fine because my fluid was uber old, never been changed. Got that disconnected, got all this off. I wound up pulling the radiator through the bottom. This is what the radiator sits on. There's one on both sides. You can just pretty much pull those off. There's a little indent right there. Pop it off with a screwdriver. And then I wound up pulling it out the bottom. I don't know if that's right or not. You could probably pull it out the top, but I found it much easier to pull it out the bottom. So we got the radiator out. And then after that, we also, I forgot to mention, we disconnected the AC lines, so they both go into the condenser on the passenger side. It is an H6 to get the AC lines off, 2 bolts, they pop off, they're O-ringed. And then I also forgot to mention there's 2 rubber, they're these guys right here. This is what holds the radiator up. So there's 2, these are H8s. Get both those out and then the radiator pop out, and then the core support is pretty simple. There's 2 10 millimeters here, and then 2 10 millimeters here, both sides, and then basically it's just clamped on here by the plastic. So once you get those 2 bolts out, you gotta get the hood latches out as well. These are pretty easy. I found it easier to just take them off completely, and then you basically just pop these little balls out of the hood latch, and then core support comes off, easy as that. There will be a lot of fluid left in your radiator and power steering line, so you want to dump that out, get it all out of there. So that's pretty much the front end torn apart. Next thing we're going to move on to is suspension. Like I said, I'm replacing all of the arms on the front suspension side. So we're gonna actually just take all of them off. I'm gonna leave the strut and the hub and the brake and all that on the car. You could do it either way. You could undo the strut and just pull all of the suspension out with it. But I'm gonna take it all off because I'm replacing it anyways. And then we'll also undo the sway bar because it's kind of in the way of the subframe, and it's also attached to the subframe. So we'll get the sway bar off completely and then pull the arms off, pull the front axles out. And then after that, that's pretty much everything on the front end of the car. We'll go underneath, do the drive shaft, see what we gotta do under there. Obviously the shifter for the car. I think we have to pull the exhaust, I'm not sure yet. And then after that, we're pretty much there to pull it out. We'll see how this goes. This is the first time I've ever done it, but hopefully this video helped you guys if you want to do it on your garage floor too. Let's go ahead and start with the arms on both sides. I'm gonna do the sway bar first, like I said, and then we'll go from there, move under the car, and keep going. All right, we got most of the suspension out. Everything's kind of out on this side. I do need to get a CV puller to get the axle out because they're stuck in there. We got both sides pretty much disconnected. I put all the sizes up on the screen for everything, so suspension's pretty much done. We just have to pull the axles out basically. So next thing we're gonna work on is the exhaust. I'm gonna start getting everything underneath done. So we're gonna actually have to pull the exhaust because the exhaust runs underneath the drive shaft and we have to get access to the drive shaft. I'm gonna try and film this the best I can. Obviously we're doing it on the ground, so it's gonna be a little difficult, but I'm gonna get under there. We'll get the exhaust undone. It's pretty easy, just pretty much connected at the downpipe. There's one brace that runs to the transmission, and then there's an X brace in the back, and then it's pretty much just 4 rubber mounts. Mine's a little different because I have the muffler delete, so it's gonna be a little easier. If you still have the big suitcase in the back, it might be a little more difficult. So we're gonna climb under the car. We're just gonna get the exhaust off for now, and then the drive shaft, and then just start unconnecting stuff, and we're pretty much there, ready to pull it out. All right, well, camera died back there and didn't get the full video of everything coming out from under the car, but we ran into a small problem. That X brace that I was taking out for the exhaust to get the full exhaust out of the car, basically there's 4 E16 bolts, or 8 total, in the front, and then there's 2 18mm in the back. And they basically mount to where the front mounts for the subframe are. So here's the brace laid on the ground, and as you can see, those are both the rear subframe mounts. So basically, this mounts in here with the 18mm, and then there's basically a welded on nut on the back side. There's really no access to it. When I tried to get the bolts out, broke that nut loose, so it was just spinning on the back side. Tried everything, vice grips, bunch of different stuff, could not get the bolt to come loose from the nut. So supported the rear subframe and pulled these 2 front mounts out. It's an E18 and then 2 16mm. That was the easiest way I could find. I literally could not get this side out. So basically that's what we had to do to get the X brace out. It was a big pain in the butt, it took me a long time, but got it out, everything's good there. Wound up pulling the full exhaust off. Got it leaned up, don't worry, that fender is smashed in, so does not matter. Exhaust is super easy to come out. There's 2 E10s that mount to the transfer case right there, and then 16mm that mounts to the diff, and I believe those were 10mm that mount kind of towards the rear. And then I had rear exhaust hangers as well. So the whole exhaust pretty much came out super easy. So basically where everything is out, I also wound up while I was down there pulling out the tunnel heat shields. So now we have everything exposed down here. There's the carrier bearing, and then we'll just disconnect the drive shaft at the transmission. That's basically everything that happened after the camera died. So I got all that out. Took me longer than I'd like to admit. But we got everything out, so now we are going to disconnect the drive shaft, and then we are really close to pulling the engine out. For now, we're gonna pull the whole drive shaft because I am gonna be replacing the guibo, or the flex disc, and the center support bearing. So we'll go ahead and get the whole assembly out and pull it out of the car so we can service it, and then we're pretty much free from there and pull the engine out. All right, well, we've made some progress. Did a little more than the drive shaft, pulled the drive shaft out. I have to get a 50mm wrench to get it out of the differential. Didn't know that, it's screwed in. Normally they're just kind of like held in with the tension of the drive shaft, if that makes sense. But this one is bolted on, so I'm gonna have to get a tool to pull the drive shaft completely out. Went ahead and started disconnecting stuff. The transmission's super easy. This is an Xdrive car, so there is a transfer case actuator. That's on the back of the transmission. So that's 2 plugs, super easy to undo. Wound up undoing the shifter. Really easy to do that too, just pulled the shift knob off. Got the center console trim out of the way, kind of pulled all the insulation and the booting out, and that's pretty much completely disconnected. There's the shift carrier is in kind of the back, and that's 2 10mm bolts. That's super easy to get out too. Just disconnected the O2s. That's really easy to do as well. And then there is a 13mm nut holding on the engine ground strap on the driver's side. Obviously some of this stuff might be a little different. If it's an E90, E93 rear wheel drive, this is for an E92 Xdrive specifically. So, but it's applicable to all of them. So now that pretty much everything is, as far as I can see, disconnected from the bottom, I'll probably leave the clutch cylinder in the car because I don't really want to bleed the clutch. So that'll have to be unbolted when we lower the trans a little bit so I can get access to it. So we are super close to getting this whole thing out. Right now, basically after I did all that stuff, I think the transmission's pretty much completely disconnected. And then now I'm gonna go through the engine bay and start disconnecting all of the wires, plugs, sensors. Gotta pull the fuel line. We might have to pull the intake manifold to get to the high pressure fuel pump. I'm gonna just start digging around, unplugging stuff, and then we'll kind of cover it when I get everything unplugged. And then after that, it's pretty much ready to drop out of the car. All right, you guys, we've made some progress, had a lot of issues with the electrical side of it, but we've moved forward. So let's cover exactly what I've done so far. Obviously, we removed the intake manifold, 6 12 mils, 8 12 or 10 mils to get the intake manifold off. Removed the junction box where all the electrical is right there. Got it out completely. Removed our power cable from the starter to the alternator and then that runs around and it's actually just sitting over here. Got all that removed, kind of disconnected everything. It's pretty straightforward what you need to disconnect and what you don't. Got the fuel line disconnected from the high pressure fuel pump. That's super easy. Same style as the power steering fittings. Got all that removed. Moved on from there, we moved to the electrical. This part seems very daunting, and it did for me at least, but it's pretty straightforward. Pull this cover off. There's 2 tabs on the sides, which you can just see are lock and unlock, such as unlock. And then there's these 2 side tabs. Those basically you just push these clips in, and then you'll be able to get the cover off. Now, once you're in the DME, basically there's 3 main harnesses that run out. They're all basically engine harnesses. One's like ignition only, stuff like that. The only one that doesn't go with it is this pin, and this is some type of body harness pin. But basically all you do is there's these large clips that plug into the ECU, and as you can see, I've already pulled this one out. There's these sliding tabs, and you just pinch them together and pull them back with them out like that, and then they'll come out of the ECU. And then basically there is a little tab that holds these in. Try to show it the best I can. Right there. And you basically push that in and you can slide these connectors out. And then basically just work through it. Most of them can only go in one spot, and they're color coded, so it's kind of hard to screw it up. Disconnect everything that you need to. There's all the plugs. I covered that one in tape so nothing got in it. I'll probably do that for the rest of these. There is one small power wire that you have to disconnect right here. And then there is also a ground wire here. Those are both 10 millimeters. Fold all the harness over onto the engine, and then that's pretty much all the wiring. I took a lot of photos of how that was oriented and positioned, just so I can put everything back how it was. So that's pretty much everything disconnected as far as I know. Obviously, when we drop the engine, we will do it very slowly so that we can make sure everything's disconnected so we don't rip anything out of the car. And then the last thing I did, you have to disconnect your steering shaft, so that obviously runs from your steering wheel down to your steering rack, and basically just knocked it out with a hammer and a screwdriver. So that is, for the most part, pretty much everything we need to disconnect at this point. So I think we are about ready to drop the engine. I do have my little table from Harbor Freight, so we'll just slide that underneath and hopefully it will come down enough. I'm a little worried about the shifter, because the shifter is still in the car attached to the transmission. I'm a little worried it's not going to clear the trans tunnel, but we're going to figure that out as we go, because I've obviously never done this. So yeah, let's go ahead and pull this engine out finally. All right, you guys, well, there we have it. Engine is out. Everything worked perfectly. If you can get your car a little higher, mine's not honestly that high off the ground at all. Shifter was hitting the trans tunnel. That was pretty much the only issue I ran into. And with the subframe bolts out and the trans mount bolts out, you can actually get up on top of the trans and remove like the circlips, basically just circlips holding the shifter in. Got those out, got the shifter out, and then was able to basically just drop it out and get everything. There was one coolant hose on the right-hand side that goes to the heater core that I forgot to connect, so I got that undone and it dumped a large amount of coolant. But this is everything. Bay's empty. A lot of cleaning to do. I'm gonna replace that rear insulation right there or figure something to do with it. So here's our engine, 6-speed transfer case on the back, obviously, running up to the front. Everything is there, out of the car. Gotta pull these axles out still. Don't let your axles hang like that, I'm replacing them. So that is where I'm gonna end this video. This is gonna be a big series because this car's getting a major overhaul. So next video will be a ton of maintenance, a ton of stuff on the N54 that we're gonna be doing. That fun box over there. And I got new clutch. I'm literally gonna do this big maintenance video. So That is about it though. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Stay tuned for sure. Please hit the subscribe button if you did like it or found it helpful at all. Make more and more of these videos as we go. And I will see you guys on the next one.